are you giving with the expectation of getting, or are you truly just giving because you want to give? And like, I just recently had someone just say, like, I don't know what to get, my husband is difficult to buy for. But when you approach me with, I hate Christmas shopping and he is impossible to buy for, but what should I get him? My answer is nothing. With that attitude, don't get him anything.
He needs nothing.
He needs you to enjoy the holiday and not complain and be
Right.
happy. That's a gift to him.
Right.
Enough said.
Welcome to ASCC, where people give freely from their overflowing buckets to fill others up. So today we're joined by MaryBeth Tipton. She's a yoga teacher, empowerment coach, and author of Journey to Joy. MaryBeth has faced profound loss and life's toughest challenges, and she's here to share how practices like yoga and self-discovery can help us heal, let go, and find joy again. Whether you're dealing with grief, feeling stuck, or seeking inner peace, MaryBeth's insights are all about creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling. Everyone, MaryBeth Tipton. So Marybeth, some things that I thought would be fun to visit about today is really healing through yoga, self-discovery, which is something you've really been a part of your journey and helped you through your toughest times. Letting go of limiting beliefs, which you've dove deeper in on your book, Journey to Joy, as well as grief and resilience, and practical steps for inner peace, which I think we could all use some practical tips for a little inner peace.
Yes, we can.
If I can start anywhere I want, let's let go of that limiting belief stuff, because I feel like if we can let go of the limiting beliefs, that will open us up to everything else that you will share with us today and allow us to move forward and really get the most out of our conversation.
All right. Limiting beliefs. So I think we all have them to some degree, right?
Yes.
And when you let them go, it's not like they don't creep back in, right? Like when one of my limiting beliefs, I'm full of self-doubt, right? The feelings of sometimes not being good enough, right? Not being smart enough. When it came to wanting to write my book, I just didn't think I was good enough. I was full of self-doubt, full of fear. And, I just had to continually let go of that, right? And embrace really what I wanted. I had to really embrace the passion, the purpose behind why I really wanted to write this book. So I had to let go of that self-doubt.
Where do you
But
think that self-doubt came from?
oh my goodness, I have all kind of false beliefs and mind stories about just not being good enough. It came from early childhood experiences. It came from ways that my parents might have dealt with some situations in my young childhood. And so we when we are younger, we try to make sense out of the nonsense of our lives. We're only 5 or 6 or 7. We don't have the adult understanding. And so when we try to process events that happened to us during those times, we oftentimes create a false narrative. We create a false belief behind that. And then we carry it with us throughout our adult life. We look for opportunities to prove that belief right, even though we really don't want to feel that way. Our ego wants to be right. So we look for situations and circumstances throughout our adult life to prove that we were in fact right, that we're not good enough. So those
Give
are
us
like,
give me an example of how this plays out. Like how we see this play out, like how like a child between those formative years of between, like you said, like 5 and 7, 5 and 8, how something happens, they create a scenario to
false
figure
belief,
it out.
a false narrative, or a mind story is oftentimes what I call them. It could just be something so little
Mind
as
story,
it
like
could just
a make believe.
Yeah, it could just be something so little as a young child whose father has a stressful job. He comes home from work. The kid just wants his attention and he's just getting snapped at or yelled at or sent to his room. Like he does not understand that his dad had a difficult day, right? And his dad doesn't take the time to explain to him why he might be acting or behaving the way in which he is. And so that the kid takes it as it's his fault. He's not good enough, or he's not loved, or he's not wanted, or he's done something wrong, or he's bad, right? And so
Okay.
he creates the story around these situations where sometimes parents just don't simply take the time to just say, this is what's going on. I know you in your little mind, you might not understand that, but this is not your fault. If I'm a little short, it's not your fault. You've not done anything wrong. Like, how many parents actually apologize to their children? Like, I know with my son, not so much as my daughter, but with my son when I was raising him, like, he just was on my last nerve all the time. And, like, I just developed a short fuse with him. So then it's like every night when I put him to bed, I was so thankful he was going to bed, but I would take that time to just say, "Listen, we didn't have the best evening, did we? Like, I'm not tell me how you feel." Like, and then I think about, like, I probably didn't handle that the way I should have handled that. I could have handled that better, and mommy was being a little short. Mommy wasn't being very understanding. Do you know what that means? Do you know what it's like, you have the conversation, you take the time, and I want you to know that you're not bad.
You're taking the responsibility away from them so that they don't have to carry that with them for the rest of their
because
lives.
they can't possibly understand to the degree that we're understanding.
So
So
that boy, so let's say that person, that boy or that girl who had
mhm.
that parent who had a hard day, who came home and just snapped at him for no reason. And that kid said, okay, I get snapped. Dad comes here. There's nothing I can do because I'm not good enough because they're going to snap at me no matter what I do. I'm not going to make good enough grades. I'm doing da, 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 because they're just going to have a bad day and snap at me no matter what. And then they're going to carry this into their adulthood.
Mhm.
And how does this play out in our adulthood?
Oh my gosh. The first time, in your adulthood, oh my goodness, so many times when you have a spouse and you do everything. You have a job, you cook, you clean, you keep a clean house, all the laundry's done, like, you do it all. And then you ask them to take out the trash or one thing, and then they just erupt as if, like, you've asked them something so monumental, but yet you do it all and you get no recognition for it,
Mm.
or, you know, you start to think to yourself, like, I just do so much and it's just not enough. It's not enough. I also have to, they expect me to now do this. Or the spouse is complaining or fault finding or criticizing what you're doing and not meaning to be hurtful. Not It could be constructive
Blaming,
criticism.
fault finding, or
Criticize Criticizing.
criticizing.
Because they
Okay.
could be they could be offering, constructive criticism, but you're gonna take it personally because you're
I
coming from a place of feeling where you're just not good enough. And so you're not seeing, right? Your false belief is like you're looking through a set of glasses that are not the right prescription, right? You're not seeing the situation clearly.
So you see this a lot. I think this is interesting because you see this a lot. You're when especially I can see this because you're a coach and you coach folks. And I bet when you're having this conversation with somebody and you're looking to help them, you see something, you're like, and you offer a little bit of advice, and they take it personal where you're this is it's not a this isn't a character assassination. This is just like, hey, if you just do this little tweak, right? If you consider maybe taking out the trash the day before the trash is due, you won't have trash filled up. Like that little, you had mentioned taking out the trash earlier, right? Like it's not a care, but they take it personal. How do you manage that as a coach? Because I can see how this is a big limiting belief on folks, like how this can play out for folks and how do you manage that as a coach?
Well, they have to build the awareness of when it's happening, right? So, like, when you are living reactionary to every little thing, like you're like the little ball inside of a ping pong table, right? Or pinball machine, I mean. Like, when you're that little ball inside that pinball machine, you're just going around, like, reacting to everything, but you're not coming from your center. Like, you're not really aware situationally of what's going on. You're not even in tune with yourself. There's a disconnect there. So you're living so reactionary, right? You don't quite get it. So the very first step is to become aware. To become aware when you are coming from a place of reaction and not response, because there's a difference.
What's the difference in reaction and response?
So
Not like
a reaction is more like a knee jerk reaction. A reaction is like is when you are responding based on emotion, based on oftentimes like a heated emotion, right? Or you
mm,
might be overreacting, so that's reactionary. It's almost like involuntary, you're just reacting. Where a response, you are coming from your center, you're coming from your integrity. It is a well thought out response. So sometimes we don't respond in the heat of emotion, right?
okay.
You might think that through. So now you're responding, right? So
Okay.
the first thing is becoming aware. You have to become aware of yourself and how you handle your experiences, how you handle conflict, how you handle difficult situations with your spouse or your coworkers or extended family, friendships. Like, start to realize, like, are similar things happening in these different relationships? Am I
Okay.
having a similar issue with a family member that I'm having with a friend? And then
Okay.
and there's some things, like, you can't control other people, but you can control you. You can control how you show up for yourself and how you show up for others. So you have to become aware of what's really happening with you. You have to, um, you have to live from your center. You have to live from your own integrity. You have to have a good sense of your core values. Like,
I love that because if there's a common denominator, because there's so many folks who live in this world where they they live in a fabulous world. Like this, like people are good. They live in a world where people are good, and then there's other that live in a world where people are bad. And maybe they're neighbors, maybe they live in the same community. What's the difference?
what's the question?
And I'm thinking the difference could possibly be just like what you're saying is the person, right? And how they are coming, how they're approaching, reacting to the world, or how they're responding to the world. When something happens, are they reacting emotionally? Are they responding in a practical manner? Like somebody, you know, I don't know what happens in a neighborhood. Uh, my dog gets out when somebody leaves the front door open. And then I'll have a neighbor who's like, oh, your dog is out. And another is like, your dog is out. That's probably more information than some people need to know about me. But I can see how that attitude really could change your perspective about your neighbors and your neighborhood.
Well, yeah,
Maybe
and
that's not a good analogy. Give me a
like,
better one. Give me
my
a
daughter
better
and I were just talking about this morning over coffee before she started her workday. She had a really busy weekend, and she kind of felt like she needed a vent to her mom this morning, and I just provide her that safe space to do that. And
one. Oh,
it's just a
I love
really busy weekend. She had 2, like, Thanksgiving parties with 2 different friend groups over the weekend, and her neighbor across the street has a daughter that has, like, every Saturday 4 hours of gymnastics practice. And she has a younger brother and my daughter has 2 little boys. And so those boys play together a lot. But
mhm.
the boy across the street, he spends 90% of his time at my daughter's house, and the boys spend less time at their house. So she's always the one that has the kids running around making a mess, right? And so
Right.
you have this neighbor who, like, she doesn't think you care because you don't ever say anything. So she sends her kid over there for 4 hours, right? And then when
Yeah.
she comes back, you know, she might not be full of gratitude. She doesn't ask her son to help the boys pick up all the toys, right?
Mhm.
And and she doesn't offer to repay the favor, right? And
Yeah.
then she collects her kid, and then she goes back home, and then my daughter's just, like, kind of frustrated, right?
Right.
Like, and so I'm like, well, you got to, how are you going to deal with that? Like, how would that person know how you feel if you don't communicate? So there's a lot of, um, you
That's
know,
a great point. How often does this happen?
but I was every weekend. But it kind of comes back to, like, you want to be likable, and like, my her and her husband are like the popular kids on the block. Everybody loves them. They do everything for everybody. They never tell anybody no. They have very few boundaries. I mean, they might get home from church within 30 minutes, somebody in the neighborhood's knocking on their door. It's like they're watching, waiting for their car to pull in the driveway. So much so that they have sometimes hurried up, pulled in the driveway, hidden their car, put their doors down, and like locked in and won't go outside because they just want to be a family without anybody else, right? But like have
Mm.
created themselves as this couple that with this open door policy, we do everything for everybody. We never say no. We don't have any boundaries. But then you have to be careful because if you start harboring or if you become a martyr, then it starts affecting your relationship. So where, and like, where else is this happening? Is this happening with your work? Is this happening in your relationship with your husband? Right? Like,
Yeah.
where are these same behaviors happening in other aspects of your life? Well, then the change is it has to come back to you. So like
So,
sometimes the need to be liked, the need to be liked, the need to people please, the need to be popular comes from a lack of self-worth, right?
wow.
So you break
That's
your
so
back doing everything for everybody all the time, and then you become sometimes a martyr.
I'm seeing this theme so much this year
Mhm.
about worthy. It came up first with Jamie Kern Lima's book Worthy. We heard her speak, I think it was about 2 years ago in no, it was in Austin at Growth Day with Brendan Burchard. And she was in the process of writing the book. She was like a few chapters in. And then she spoke at Tony Robbins, and now you bring it up, and all this, and it just keeps coming back, our self-worth, and how that impacts so much of everything,
Everything.
and being aware of this. So once we're aware that there's this common denominator on how things play out in our lives and how the boundaries that we have set or haven't set, right, may not have been the boundaries that we have chosen, but the boundaries that somebody else has chosen for us.
Correct.
Um, how do we reinstate these boundaries so that we can have that joy again?
It's it's something that you have to do every day. It starts with coming back to yourself and recreating how you show up for yourself, how you show up for others, recreating your way of being, recreating the life that you want. And then you have to go back and almost do that daily, right? And I do it yearly. I do it I because I fail. I try to live by what I teach, but I still fail. But I'm going through similar things too, where, like, I have to completely reprioritize some things and move my boundaries a little bit, right? Like, um, going
And we
into the holidays.
evolve. Right? Like we evolve. Mary Beth, like what might have been a good boundary in last season is not going to be the same boundary in this season. Like I don't need to wear a winter coat in the summer. I'd say like that's like an odd analogy for a boundary, but I think as our seasons change, our boundaries also shift as well.
Absolutely. They can change so quickly. And like right now we're, like in the holiday season, right?
Mhm.
And you've got some people that love shopping for Christmas. You've got some people that don't like shopping for Christmas. You got some people that host and entertain for the holidays and do a lot of the work. And then you've got other people that do nothing and they just show up and they don't even take their dish to the sink, right? You're dealing with a lot of things. But like, but again, it comes back to, where are you coming from? Are you coming from a place of love and peace and joy? Like, what is your purpose? What is your passion? What is your core values? Right.
Right. Or
And
are
then,
you coming from judgment and resentment and bitterness, which is comes from that trauma from that child, that are we still letting that 7-year-old child dictate
right. But are you doing things
how we're
because you
gonna
want
react?
to, or are you doing things and are you going to resent it? Do you really want to do you really want to host the events? Or are you going to resent, are you going to resent it? Or do you really, like, so like, Are you giving with the expectation of getting, or are you truly just giving because you want to give? And like, I just recently had someone just say, like, I don't know what to get, my husband is difficult to buy for. But when you approach me with, I hate Christmas shopping and he is impossible to buy for, but what should I get him? My answer is nothing. With that attitude, don't get him anything.
He needs nothing.
He did right. Like he needs you to enjoy the holiday and not complain and be
Right,
happy. That's a gift to him. Enough
right.
said. But like when it comes to these boundaries, like how do you do that? It's just it's simple. Like do you have people in your life that like give you grief because they send you a text message and you don't get back to them in time? I mean,
Oh,
I just recently got scolded because I haven't liked a bunch of her Facebook posts over the last couple of weeks. I'm like, do I need to defend myself, what I'm doing with my time, the important things that I'm up to? Like,
right.
no, I don't. And so then I offended her when I said, I'm protecting my peace. She doesn't know what that means or what that looks like for me. But for me, I'm in a space right now of some really important things. Those things to me are not important. So this is a boundary that I've committed to right now because I have a lot of important things going on. I've got book signings, podcasts, interviews. I have television appearances I'm preparing for in the midst of still running my entire business. And like I have a lot going on, right? But I don't need to defend myself about what all I have going on, especially since you haven't asked. Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's up? What's going on? What's happening in your life, right? You haven't even asked. You just wanted to find fault with me because I haven't liked a few of your Facebook pictures.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm
So
like, I'm protecting my peace right now. I have a lot going on and I'm in this space. And then when you tell them that, well, now that was offensive because, like, well, then how am I not part of your piece? They don't get it. They don't.
right.
And it's like, that's not my problem. I'm not saying I'm not, I'm actually a really nice person, but it gets to a point where it's like, that's not how you interpret. I just,
Is this it's like if this was I'm gonna guess this wasn't a first offense. I'm gonna guess that there's probably been a pattern because if this was somebody in your life who's typically in your life that's like who's been filling your bucket, who's been filling your joy, right? And this one time they said, "Hey, what's going on?" And they came from a place of curiosity versus a place of judgment, right? I'm gonna guess it was probably a little judgment behind it versus curiosity behind it. Um,
well, and it very much so, but that's very possible. But also, like, people do not like you cannot make all these assumptions all the time. I mean, you just don't know what other people are going through,
right,
and I've had a lot kind of coming at me here lately from a lot
right.
of different directions. And
Mhm.
so it's like, okay, I'm like, everything is like out here right now. So like, you know what, and this I love this person, but it's like I just operate so differently. So like, but what's interesting is that I have a couple of friends that they totally get it. So like, I've been gone from one of my really good friends for 6 weeks, and I've talked to her on the phone a total of 2 times.
Yeah.
And I'm not getting that response from her. She understands. The other friend, I haven't talked to her once in 6 weeks. A couple text messages here and there, but that's it. We haven't been on the phone for 6 weeks. I she's not finding fault with me. She totally gets it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so like you just it they you just sometimes some people are going through things, that they're having a tough time. So then they take things personally, or they might make some assumptions, or they're not seeing the big picture, or they might be self-consumed about whatever they're going through. No, and like you love them and they know you're here for them and that they're loved, but at the same time, there is a boundary there. And like I do want to enjoy my life, right? I do want to be a kind, loving, thoughtful, peaceful person for everyone that's in my life. But sometimes I can't be available for everybody every minute of the day.
You
Like
can't you can't be everything to everybody all the
all the
time,
time. Exactly.
but you can be that to some people some of the time. At so
And
And
and if I were coming from a place now, I'm sorry, but let me but if I was coming from a place where I was living with my mind story that I'm not worthy, then I would be people pleasing 24/7.
oh,
Then I would be running around that crazy ass person that nobody wants to because that's, I'm
you'd be
her, right?
exhausting and exhausted.
But see, instead, I'm not doing that. I've done the inner work. I know my self-worth. I know how hard Mary Beth has worked to get to where she is today. I no longer have to prove it to anyone. I know my
Yeah.
worth. I know my value in this world. And sometimes people don't like that. They, they like unworthy Mary Beth, because she's a people pleaser.
Especially if that's who they have come accustomed to, right? And have you also found that a lot of times people's reaction is really it's not their reaction is a reflection of themselves. So
Exactly.
it's since it's an emotional reaction and not a response. So if this is you and this is them, and you give them you give them this, and then they come here, a reaction would be this, a response would come this way, right? It'd be more like a tennis match, I guess, right? Like it'd go from here to here to here to here, versus a reaction it's just like stays over here, and versus a response would just go back and forth. I'm like I'm picturing a response versus a reaction. A reaction is more self reflect a self almost
And
selfish
reaction is something that's almost involuntary, that is an action based on emotion.
in emotion, and it
And it's
seems
not really coming
it's
from your
selfish.
integrity, your center.
Okay.
It's not well thought out. It's not a response. And so, when you have these little rubs, I'm going to call them rubs because they're not always conflicts, they're just little rubs, right, with somebody, they are operating through their own lens, right? They are interpreting something from their own life story, right? From their own mind's story, from how they process life, which can be completely different than how you do, right? So
Right.
like I'm not taking it personal, right? I'm not taking the fault finding with me not doing something that, personal. I'm not taking it personal because in that I'm not in that person's shoes, right? But whose shoes I am in, who I have to live with 24/7 and lay down at night with is myself, right? And I'm up to here with a lot of things right now. So it's like I, I love you. I'm protecting my peace right now. Like I
Right.
just have a lot going on and I need your love for me to be understanding
Right.
and give me a little bit of space to be in the things that I'm working on right now. I don't ask much from people, but if I need a little bit of space and understanding, I think I deserve a little bit of that grace. And
Unapologetically. And this is where I believe it's interesting because I've been on a similar journey, right? And and I think it's, and I was telling my daughter's 14, and she said something, I think as women, she apologized for something unnecessarily. And I had to let her know, honey, we don't apologize for that's there we don't apologize for that. There's no reason to apologize for you
oh, I love where you're going.
for like a basic feeling, a want, for communicating your own want, desire, fundamental, that doesn't impede or hurt any. Nobody got hurt in this. It was just your opinion.
I
No.
love where you're going. Because you told your daughter, you don't need to apologize for a way that you're feeling. Basically, it's a feeling, right?
Yeah,
Something that
it's
she
your
was feeling.
opinion, it's the way you feel.
Right.
Like, why you didn't
Thank
hurt
you.
anybody, you didn't do
That
anything
segues
wrong,
us
why are we
that
apologizing? There's nothing to change. We only apologize if we have something we have
does
to
something
change.
wrong.
You something wrong.
Exactly. So that leads me to validating emotions and how important it is to validate emotions. Emotions have a purpose. Our feelings need to be felt. They need validation. They don't have to have validation from somebody else. You can validate your own feelings. You can validate your own emotions. Own them. Own them. And sometimes feelings do not need to be acted upon, they just need to be felt. And so when we talk about validating emotions and how important it is, it can go back to our own childhood when we had emotions that weren't validated that caused these like mind stories and false narratives and limiting beliefs. But like as we come into adults, the importance when we validate our emotions, both our own emotions and emotions of others, it's freeing, it's liberating. We when we it's like when we unlock these emotions, we're like freeing an inner child. We become a when we validate emotions, whether it's our own or somebody else's, we're better humans. And when we stomp on somebody else's emotions, we suffocate them or we freeze the emotion. We cause these little traumas, right? And in yoga we call them samskaras, but nonetheless, we want those that we love to be able to express their feelings, right? We
Yes.
want those we love to be able to express their feelings,
That's
to
how we
know that they
connect.
have our love and they don't have to earn it. They have it. They don't have to earn it. Those we love, especially our children, especially our children. And so we have to stop poisoning the well. When we validate our children, we're better parents. When we validate other people, we're better humans. When we validate our spouses, we're better spouses. When we change families, right? Our own family, we change lives.
Yeah.
It's so important. I can't preface enough. Like I recently, man, I hope my none of my family watches this episode. I'm gonna have to like take edit all this out. But I recently had a situation where I explained to a family member that my feelings were hurt. And
Mm,
instead of them telling me, I am sorry I hurt your feelings, it was not my intention, right? And it,
mm,
it could have just been a lot better, right? But instead, they thought they had the right to tell me whether or not my feelings should or should not have been hurt. You don't
right.
get that right. No one has the right to tell me how to feel, how I
Right.
should or shouldn't feel. Not only did they not validate my hurt feelings as a family member, they told me my feelings were ridiculous. How I felt now, they criticized my feeling as being a ridiculous feeling.
Yes.
You know how hurtful that was?
Yes.
I was also told to grow
That's
up.
so interesting. I just had this conversation. I just recently had this conversation, and I think I actually had this conversation completely unaware. I had a feeling and somebody's like told me my feeling was wrong and I almost went with it. And I'm so important that you bring this up because how often, and I think women, and I hate being sexist because I'm an only child raised by a man. I don't like sexist remarks. I really don't. But I do find that women really fall into this bucket where we will allow somebody else to tell us we are so willing to accept that our feelings are wrong when those are our feelings and our feelings are real. It's a real reaction to something. The something might be wrong or the something might be right. It's not about the something. It's about how we feel about the something. And the way we feel about the something is the actual how we feel about the something. That is it.
If
There's
you
no
are
judgment
listening,
about it's about the feeling. It's not about the something.
if you're listening at home right now, if you take anything from this podcast interview, shift this paradigm right now. You feel how you feel, and no one can tell you that it is right or wrong, good or bad, should or shouldn't have, right? Own it. Validate your own feelings, validate your own emotions. If there's anything like the paradigm shift must happen now because
Yes.
as women, I don't care what women meant who you are, like No one can tell you that how you feel is wrong. Own it. Those are your feelings. Validate your own feelings. Don't look for someone else to validate them yourself. Right there.
And
It's like
then,
that is so important to like it almost gives other people around you permission to do the same, right? You've noticed that?
yeah,
It's like when you start validating yourself and how you feel, it's almost like you're giving those in your closest circle permission to do the same.
yeah,
Like, so like if you look at your way of being as a generosity towards someone else, like, because I talk about that a lot, like, are my way of being, how I show up for myself, how I show up for others. It's like it it gives them permission to do the same.
yes. It opens the door. It
Right.
opens the door. And going back to the feel, I think because everything when it comes to healing, and I know you know more about this than I do, but and what I've heard is you've got to go through the feel,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
that feel serves you or doesn't serve you, right? It doesn't matter. And I think a lot of times we want to place judgment on the pain, on the feel. Like
You wanna
somebody else wants to put judgment on the feel, you want to put judgment on the feel. There's no judgment on the feel. The feel is the feel, it's the feel of the feel. And we
yeah,
sit in the feel, we feel the feel. That's how we get through the feel so that we can overcome the feel and get to the other side. And that's how we get to where we can heal the feel.
exactly. You have to feel it to heal it.
You got to feel it to heal it. Oh, yes, that's a quote. Is is that a common quote? Is that like something
Yeah,
that people use? Okay. I was about to say I
feel
must
it.
be new to this. You gotta
Yeah.
feel it to heal it. That just makes sense. So you have done it through yoga.
Yoga and meditation and self-discovery. I call it self-inquiry a lot. Yeah.
Tell me more. What got you there? Like there's something in your life that that was that got you to that place. Can we go back to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So when I when I started my yoga practice, I had a one of my friends asked me to attend a yoga class with her because she was kind of like on a weight loss journey, and I said, "Sure, I'll go with you." So I had gone to my first yoga class with her. Now I had done some like yoga style videos at home that incorporated like just like yoga stretches and stuff. So I had done some yoga before, but never like an official like 60-minute yoga class of yoga in public. So it was my first yoga class that we have gone to, and like
In
down
public.
so painful. I was like, I thought I might die, and she hated it, and she was looking at me going, and I'm just like, I don't know if we're doing this right. This hurts, like, but I loved it. She didn't care for it so much. I stuck with it. So then I started practicing yoga with different teachers, different style of yoga classes. I loved it. I became a power junkie because I really liked how I felt about myself after I left a really hot, sweaty, hard power class. I was growing
Mm,
in confidence. I was growing. I was just. It was amazing. I was starting to become more aware of my capabilities and amazing. So I had started on a yoga journey, and so then life happens as it does. None of us are insulated from pain and loss. And I lost my stepson.
mm.
He was 27 and he took his life suddenly. And I couldn't get back to my yoga mat right away. I couldn't even get out of bed or go to the grocery store. It was pretty tough. Anxiety can be kind of crippling. And so it was a really difficult time in our lives. It's been beginning this winter, it'll be 10 years ago. So it was a very difficult time in our lives. And eventually I made it back to my yoga mat. And what happened on my mat during that time of my life where I was in the pits of despair and grief was that I spent an hour on my mat with myself. I got to be me. I
Mm,
got to feel my feels on my mat without worrying about my husband or putting his feelings first or his grief first. I got to
Mhm.
be with me and see my own grief, my own pain, my own heartache, my own sorrow. And that hour I would spend on the mat was it was painfully beautiful. And I started to fall in love with myself again. I started to see this delicate person and so much pain and despair and fear of losing her husband, fear of losing her marriage, fear
Mhm.
of like the life we once had is now gone, forever changed.
Mhm.
And and so my yoga practice just really helped me be present with her. And then I learned there was something so simple as having strength in my breath. I learned the power of breathing fully, deeply, and it allowed it to calm me. And I noticed every time I emerged from a sweaty yoga class, I got stronger. I got stronger physically, I got stronger mentally, I got stronger emotionally. And so I started like, okay, there's something about this. This is helping me. This is helping me heal. Now, yeah, I read books on grief and I was going to counseling and my husband was going to counseling and him and I kept the lines of communication open, right? We were doing all the things, working through the stages. But then I started teaching him some of the things I was learning, and it was kind of helping him too. And then I started a meditation practice and it wasn't easy. And sometimes it was 5 minutes, sometimes it was 15. It was never past 15. I just wasn't able to do that. But I started a daily meditation practice, time to just be with me. And when
What
the
kind of
world got
meditation did you choose? What was your initial practice that got you started?
oh, it was something so simple as just sitting in a comfortable seat with my eyes closed, stillness, quiet, and breathing, and just being with me, just listening to her. See, we are the observer of ourselves. We are not our everything that we think, they're just thoughts. That's not us. We are the silent observer of those thoughts. We are the seer of all of
We
that.
are the silent
Observer.
observer of our thoughts.
They are
So
not
we
us.
observe our thoughts. So when you're in meditation, you have a thought and you take the minute to observe the thought.
Yes, absolutely. And I would sit there 5 to 15 minutes. Sometimes I cried, sometimes I prayed, but I would just allow myself to be in complete stillness and complete silence and just be with me. And there were magical things that were happening. And then on the days where I was really anxious and grief it was just like I couldn't, like my chest was heavy. Like I had a mala. A mala is 108 beads on um, and I would take each bead, there's 108 beads on this necklace, and I would take each bead and just rub it through, each finger would cross over the bead. So 108. And then I would stay in meditation until I went all around the necklace 2 times. And when you get around it twice, because the very last mala, there's usually like a tassel on it, or it's the larger one or whatever. And then each bead is hand knotted,
Is it kind of like a rosary?
sort of, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But usually the beads around 8 millimeter size. So
Okay.
sometimes I would, like when I just couldn't, I had anxiety and I just was like a monkey mind. I would just sometimes just sit and just use the mala. And then sometimes I did an I am statement, right? So like if your husband is just being right, or child or spouse or someone is just driving you completely insane, like one of the things I would do is I'd sit with my mala and I'd just be like, I create myself as like I am a calm and tranquil person. Over each bead, I'm a calm and tranquil person. Silently to myself, I am a calm and tranquil person. Well, it's crazy. After 108 times or 216 times of doing that, you leave your mat that meditation cushion, a calm and tranquil person. I
Yeah.
create myself as patient, or, or I am patient. I am patient. I am lovingly patient, right? Like whatever you need, you take it. And then you just reaffirm it to yourself. You use that time to create yourself as, and then that follows you off your mat. And then you're shocked at how it's affecting your relationships. Because when you create yourself as that, like the person that is right in the vicinity of your house with you, they're picking up on that. They're picking
Yeah.
up on energy. And so that's
Absolutely.
I started working through this grief, meditation, yoga. So then after about a year, it was astounding at the healing that was happening, the progress I was making. And I said to my husband, I can't keep this to myself. Like I have to share this with other people because I feel like when you are blessed with wisdom, it's
Mhm.
selfish to keep it to yourself. You should share it. So I said, I think I'm going to go become a yoga teacher. I want to use this gift that I found and share it with other people. I want to help and heal other people through the teachings of yoga. And yoga is not just meditation and, doing these funny shapes on your mat. There's 8 levels of yoga. There's the breathing part, there's the focus part. There's the yamas and the niyamas, and we don't have time for that. That's a whole nother episode on just the yamas and niyamas. They're like the 10 commandments.
We're
So
not we're not talking about the cute little llamas.
no, not llamas, but yamas, like a Y. So like when once I was starting to bring all this into my life, it was like I'm just blown away at the things that were happening. And then like sometimes I would end meditation and I'd grab my pen into my journal and I'd start writing about things that came up for me and how it felt in my body. Or I might have come to a realization, right? Or sometimes I swear, like there was like messages just like being brought to me, and I couldn't wait till when I was done to grab my pen and just write them down before I would forget them. So anyway, I became a yoga teacher because of that. And I've gone on to have 1,000 hours of yoga teacher training. Um, Started teaching yoga, and um, and yeah, that's kind of my yoga journey.
And so somebody changed your lives, now you're paying it forward and you're changing others' lives, which is the concept of this podcast. It's that overflowing buckets,
So I
right?
started my yoga business. It's been over 8 years. I've had a monthly newsletter I send every month, and then people just kept saying they loved my newsletters. They'd say, "You need to write a book. You need to write a book. You need to write a book." So
Before we get, I want to talk about your book, but if somebody wants to like get on in on your newsletter, how do we do that?
you simply go to my website, yogalivingllc.com.
yogalivingllc.com. Okay. And now, so you just started writing newsletters that are like, these are great. Turn them into a
Yeah,
book.
you should write a book. So then I would throw some blogs up on my website, but nobody really goes to a website and really reads a blog. So I was like, well, I guess if you want to read it, you'll read it. And if not, whatever. But they're there. But then people that did read it were like, wow, you need to write a book. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe someday. But I'm not good enough, right? Self-doubt creeps in, those
Mm.
old stories. I still continue to deal with all of that. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And then one day I just said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to push that aside. I'm going to do it. And so here we are. Now I'm an author.
When did you write the book?
It was a process of 2 years,
Okay.
and I did have to hire a book coach. I could not do it on my own. The book coach was really great at helping me organize my thoughts. Sometimes I'd write about this one day, this another day. Then I was like, how do I segue these things together? And he's like, don't worry about it. Just send it to me. And then like I started having some issues with my joints. And in the midst of writing my book, I developed rheumatoid arthritis.
Oh,
And so then things got kind of challenging, and I get some writer's block, and so then he would give me writing prompts. Or if I said I really want to write about this, and I'm writing this, and I want to go here, but I'm not really sure how to segue it to here, he would give me some writing prompts, and those things would help me. And so like I wrote 5 times more than what we used in the book, right? Like I just
yeah.
had to write it. And then I had to hire him to help me like sort through like, I think you should keep this, this should go. Let's keep this, let's get rid of that. And then he would make some edits, and sometimes I liked his edits and sometimes I'm like, I don't like your edits. I don't like it. Like no. Like
Right.
so
So you
sometimes
work through that. Yeah, that is a process because I've had lots of friends who've written books and it is a process. It's your child, it's your baby, and then it gets published and then and then that book, you've turned it, do you have a coaching program around it?
not yet. Not yet. It is new. It's only been out a couple months. But my book is an inspirational memoir. It's a testament to resilience. It teaches people how profound suffering and a life riddled with pain or loss or grief or adversity, how it can impact you to truly discover better growth, better like growth, wisdom. Um, it's an opportunity to get better, not bitter. So I teach people like to
Oh,
get better, not bitter from all of the loss or adversity. So it's an inspirational memoir. It's a guide to healing. It helps people rediscover joy. It helps them discover their mind story, those false beliefs we talked about. Help do the work through self-discovery, mindfulness practices, setting intentions, yoga, meditation, breath work, forgiveness, gratitude. There's so much covered in this book. Helping people become more authentic, and when you are more authentic, you have more authentic relationships as well. And how important these relationships are. So I end the book talking about relationships. So yeah, it took a lot of courage, transparency, to write my story because it is a pretty hard one to write. And so it wasn't easy. It wasn't a glamorous process. It took nearly 2 years. And this is the cover. yogalivingllc.com. There's links on the website to my publisher, to Amazon, to Barnes and Noble. It's on ebook and paperback. There's, I think I even shared with you like the QR code perhaps. But yes, my book's on yogalivingllc.com, marybethtipton.com, and get your copy. And I just had a text message from a friend that bought the book for her sister who's going through a really difficult time. And she bought it for her as a gift. And she said, I don't get it till Wednesday. Will you be around on Wednesday to autograph it for her? And so like, if there's anyone that that is suffering or struggling, or who cannot benefit from healing and rediscovering joy?
yeah,
This book is for everybody.
absolutely. Thank you so much for this because I know there's so many of us that are allowing our 8-year-old that we're still using that story and versus recognizing that we have a whole new vocabulary, an entire new experience, and we can actually write new chapters and can our story has not ended and we continue to write that story and we have the power to do that and just a matter of just picking up tools and rewriting that story. I appreciate you sharing your vulnerabilities, right? Sharing your story.
Thank
And
you.
it's sometimes we don't know how to be aware or we're we have a blind spot. And when we can see how somebody else recognized their blind spot, it helps us see our blind spot. So thank you for sharing that journey so that we can be more aware of our blind spots.
Can I share that anyone interested, if you go to my website, yogalivingllc.com, anyone interested in starting a yoga journey or continuing or considering me to be your yoga teacher, I do have an online membership. So for $25 a month, you have unlimited anytime access to over 250 yoga classes. I have 30-minute classes, 60-minute classes. I offer beginner, vinyasa, gentle, power, yin, yoga nidra. I've got breathwork practices. I have guided meditations. I even have a Spotify playlist. yogalivingllc.com, become a member, and $25 a month, unlimited anytime access to all of my classes. I upload more every month. And for the listeners out there, you could get your first month free if you use the code yoga trial, all caps, one word, yoga trial at checkout.
I'm going to do it myself.
Please do.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. I am in this space, so I want you to know how much appreciate how much like I don't even know how to say this. I'm going to take a beat. I'm going to take a breath. How much I appreciate this conversation. It's the timing is perfect. I'm going to use the code. I'm signing up and I'm so excited and I'm hoping that I can get a group of friends and we can do it together
And you
because I
can do
think this
that.
will be so much fun.
You can do that. I even have access on my website to a spreadsheet of all the class names. and you can just print out your little spreadsheet and check off the classes you like. You can make notes like, okay, this was like really hard and kicked my butt, or this, I loved this class, or what you liked about it. I want to take this one again. So there's even a spreadsheet there. All the classes are labeled. They're themed. I spend a lot of time creating my classes. I'm not a teacher that just calls out poses. My classes are very thoughtful, so they're themed. So I teach. I plant little seeds while I'm teaching, and my students leave their mat better, stronger. They leave their mat empowered, inspired. What they show up on their mat in practice, they get better at. So, like if they show up on their mat and they're practicing with compassion, acceptance, patience, those things get stronger. They follow them off their mat. So I teach that. That's why my business is Yoga Living, not yoga, right? It's Yoga Living, because I teach people how to live their yoga practice, not just on their mat, but off their mat. That's
Oh,
the best part.
I
So
love that so much.
I'm not just a yoga instructor. I truly am a teacher. And I'm just give my yoga a try, because I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed. If it's gentle, it's labeled gentle. If you're new, there's 2 beginners classes on there, beginners 1, beginners 2. Take those. All my contact information's on there. Email me, say like, what am I doing wrong? I can't do, like, I will give you modifications. If you're saying like, I'm having a hard time with this, just send me an email. I will email you back. I'll give you a modification to do that pose until you get the strength to do it the way you might be seeing it done on the video. And one last thing I want to say is about joy, because we were kind of talking earlier about like how
Yeah, yes, yes, yes.
I want our listeners to know that joy is something that we already have. We don't necessarily find it. We have it. And if you want more joy in your life, be joyful in it.
Go deeper into that.
If cultivate joy like it's your job. Protect your peace, protect your joy like it's Fort Knox. Don't
Okay,
let someone diminish your joy. Like your joy is like it is yours. Everybody has inside of them this
let's go
joy.
back. I want to go back to the very first thing you said.
Okay.
The most important thing you said. It is already in you.
You
It's not
have
something we go out to
it. It's fine.
find. It
Mm-mm.
is already in you. And then it is already in you. We don't go out and find it.
Right.
We
Cultivate it.
we cultivate it.
Protect
So we protect it and we cultivate it. For those who, because I know there's folks out there who are like that joy. They're like that peace. Like where, where am I cultivating it? It's like, it makes me think about those people who like they learned how to rework the land, and they were able to get like original plants that they haven't seen from that land from years and years and years and years, because they learned how to work the land in its original form.
That's right.
How do we do that for us? Because it's that seed is in there. And I know, like, if you don't mind just sharing, because this is like something that I think is just so important. And this is a please, thank you for bringing this up.
Well, joy is you have to make it a priority in your life. And it's not up to somebody else to make you happy, to make, like your joy is not contingent upon somebody else.
Or anything else, or something like
Mm,
it's not a if
no,
then it's not a if
no.
this then that. It's not a if this then joy. It is a joy.
You have it.
It is
You
there. It's
have
not a
to make it
if
a
this
priority.
happens, then I'm
Cultivate it.
joyful. If this
Right.
happens, I'm happy. If this happens, I'm peaceful.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
joy and peace are first.
Right. Right. And I, you know, I was hanging out with a friend I don't see very often yesterday. I might be lucky if I see her twice a year. And, we're together and we're laughing. And she says, every time I'm around you, I pee my pants. She's like, you have me laughing and I pee my pants. She's like, no one in my lifetime has ever made me laugh the way you make me laugh. She's like, I literally laugh, cry, pee. Like, she's like, have you always been this way? Like what, and I'm like, well,
You're like, I have a yoga move for that.
kind of, but like, It's like, I've been told like my joy is contagious. And so if it really is, I want everyone to catch it, right? And so like enthusiasm, like the same way, like have like an enthusiasm for life, right?
Right.
Let your joy and your enthusiasm be contagious so that the people around you, they all catch it,
Mm.
right?
Don't let society make sure and I think that's really important. Like we surround ourselves with these people who believe that like don't like I want to say this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, right? Like I just want to start singing and I'm going to spare you from Henry, but really let your light shine because we really need this. And when there comes that one person who's going to react negatively, that is because they are in their own dark place. They probably need to see more light in their life, right? They
Right.
need to probably see that their joy is possible, peace is possible. And I had somebody on my Facebook. I had a couple people, they just went on, "Rrr," right? And my husband reminded me, he was listening to a podcast, this one person, and they said talked about the demise of society. They went over all the statistics and they studied culture for thousands of years, and societies and cultures that did amazingly well, right? They talked about their money, their government, the how men and women and treated each other and all of that. And the common denominator between all of them was how they treated each other. When they stopped treating each other well, that is when everything fell apart. So nothing is more important than how we treat each other at the end of the day. And this is where I'm like, okay, this is that's my response. So important when you like folks like you and when like us, right, who are able to have that joy. Maybe not every day, but on the days that we do,
Right.
right?
When you were talking about how you were just saying about how we treat each other. And when you have like you might witness and we've all had arguments with people, but when you're in a heated argument and voices elevate,
Mm.
the louder two people shout at each other, the further apart their hearts get. So the louder they have to get because their hearts are getting further and further and further apart. So they have to shout louder and louder and louder. But when
Oh,
you stop shouting and you start talking more calmly, and you're now in a calm voice and you're leaning in to listen, your hearts get closer. And think like like that when you think of that like metaphorically speaking, like when you think of like those relationships and how you handle others coming from that place of love, of peace, of calm, of joy, right? And then that's what brings that together. And like that's what makes you a people magnet too. Because when you create your way of being that way, people want to be around that. And they don't even know why. They don't even understand why you're so special. If you ask them, they would just be like, I don't know. I just love her. I just want to be with her all the time. They don't even get, like, right? But like,
right,
be her, be that way, be him.
right. And and it just starts, right? Like it's already in us. That person is already in us, right? We were born that way. And and that child, there's a story that we made up, right? That some we've held on to, that we've decided that we chose to hold on to and we've chosen to believe. And we have a gazillion of these stories that we've chosen to believe, right?
Right,
That we just have to just kind of be like, "Oh wait, hold on. Let's rethink this." Right? Let's rethink this story. And as they come up and rethink this story and correct that story to go back to our original intent of 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 how God intended us to be on this earth.
right.
Because right,
And
like
when you fail, you begin again. You simply just begin again. That's what yoga teaches us.
Right.
Begin again. Like
It's just an
the very
opportunity.
first sentence of the Yoga Sutras is, and now yoga begins. We begin again because we're going to fail. We're going to mess up. We're going to get sidetracked, right? We're going to get caught up in the chaos, right? We don't want to throw more chaos at chaos, right?
Mhm.
Although sometimes we do throw more chaos at chaos, but like you just simply begin again. We're going to stumble. We're going to fall. We're going to fail. We're going to disappoint people. Begin
The
again.
chaos comes from the judgment. It doesn't come from the falling. So if we fall and we just fall, then we just get up. The
Yep.
problem comes when we fall and we have past judgment on the fall. We think, oh, what does somebody think? Oh, I shouldn't have fall. Oh, I should have done better. I did it. All the judgment that swirls around it, right?
Right.
That's the problem. We just fell.
Or you're blame, or you get caught in the blame game. It's somebody else's fault and it's never your own.
It's never our own. It might just be that I haven't done this before, my balance is off, and,
Exactly.
my fine twitch muscles are just off, and I don't have the strength to pull this off, and that just is what it is,
And you begin again.
and we begin again.
We create our way of being over and over and over again. We go back and we recreate, and we create the life we want, and we go back and we edit and we recreate again. It's a continual practice. It's a journey, and it's a
It's a
journey that we
scientific method. Mary Beth, is there anything that we might not have talked about today that you're like, shoot, I wish we would have talked about that?
should. I don't think so. I think we kind of hit on everything. I just want the listeners to know that it's never too late to create the life that you want.
Ah,
It's never too late. And, learning and self-discovery never end for those of us with a growth mindset, and never stop learning, never stop looking for opportunities to grow, to be better.
yeah.
And when you do, it stops poisoning that well I mentioned earlier. When you do, it trickles down to your children, your grandchildren. It trickles out to the world around you. Um, so never stop learning and growing, and leaving behind that indelible mark of growth, of being better, and taking this crazy life that we live in, and being better for it, not bitter. You know.
Mary Beth, thank you for filling our buckets today.
Thank you so much for filling mine. I could have talked to you for hours. I think we could have just talked for hours and hours. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this conversation. It was fantastic. You, by far, the best podcast I've ever done.
What?
Yes.
I'll take that. Thank you so much. Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. This was one of my very favoriteest conversations, for real.